Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down a massive storm that is coming to the United States this week. And this storm is going to bring a ton of different problems. This includes the risk of severe weather beginning today, which will run all the way through Thursday of this week. It's going to be a 5-day severe weather event, which is really crazy. In addition to that, we'll be watching for the threat of flooding in areas like the Southern Plains due to all the rainfall that is going to fall all through this week. In addition to that, we'll also be breaking down the solar eclipse forecast for you, which I will give you a detailed breakdown on who will be seeing perfect conditions and who's also going to have a lot of cloud cover tomorrow. I'll be giving you the latest breakdown on everything that you need to know in this forecast, and let's hop right into this large storm that'll be impacting the United States over the next several days. And we'll begin with the future radar to give you an idea of where this activity is all going to basically be happening here over the next several days. And we will begin with today. So today overall, we're not really talking about any sort of significant severe weather event, but with that being said, there is at least going to be a low-end threat of severe weather. Notice this low pressure system, which is, by the way, actually pretty strong right now. This low pressure system is centered back up in the northern plains, and you might be thinking this looks like we could get some severe weather in the Midwest. Well, not really, because this particular storm is only going to bring some isolated showers today. We don't have a whole lot of moisture either in the Midwest. I'm not ruling out an isolated storm that tries to go a little severe, maybe in Iowa or northern Missouri, but the risk is overall very low. The one area that I would be watching for today, though, would be from about southeast Illinois back into areas like Arkansas. In this particular area, I would be watching for a slightly more elevated chance there for some large hail, damaging winds, maybe a brief tornado during the afternoon hours, perhaps into the early evening. Once we go into Monday, that is when things get very interesting across the United States, because this particular storm is actually going to weaken out entirely. It's going to be done by the time we go into Monday afternoon, but what's really going to be interesting is this activity that's going to develop back down along the Gulf Coast and eventually really grow in size, turning into a pretty hefty and large storm. Notice this, as we go into late Monday afternoon into the evening hours, we'll be dealing with some showers and thunderstorms across areas in the Southern Plains. That includes Texas, even back down near Oklahoma. Once we go into Tuesday, this really explodes in activity. We're going to be talking about multiple days of showers and thunderstorms across the Southern Plains and the lower Mississippi Valley that could lead to even some severe weather in many areas, and we'll be talking about that here in just a few minutes. As we go into Tuesday into Wednesday, this activity begins to move a bit further to the east, but we'll still be dealing with some severe weather in like the lower Mississippi Valley, for example. And then once we go into Wednesday into Thursday, that shower and storm activity all moves into the southeast, where there will be another chance for severe weather in the southeast, including Georgia, South Carolina, perhaps even northern Florida. And then once we go into Friday, this is a very large storm, really strong storm as well. It's going to bring a lot of rainfall to the northeast as well, but I'm not expecting any significant snow event out of this particular storm. Once we go into Sunday into Monday, we are done with that, and we'll be talking about probably another storm as we go into the middle of April. With all that being said, we are going to have multiple days of severe weather ahead, and this is going to be a day-by-day breakdown in terms of what we're going to be talking about over the next several days. Beginning with what's happening today, we do have a marginal threat of severe weather for southern Illinois back into East Texas. It's a very thin area, very small area overall, in my opinion. We're not really talking about a huge risk here. The main concern would be isolated damaging winds, perhaps even some isolated large hail, but there's also a low-end tornado risk that I would be watching for very closely this afternoon. So be mindful if you're in southern Illinois back into Louisiana. A very low tornado risk will exist. Again, it's not zero, it's not high by any means, it's just a low risk that you should at least be mindful of. A brief tornado or two will be possible. And then once we go into Monday, we are going to have an increased risk for severe weather in the Southern Plains. This threat overall is a little bit more concerning, in my opinion, than what we're talking about obviously today, and really overall what we've seen over the last several days. I do think this is going to be a much more significant threat of severe weather, because we're going to be talking about large to very large hail. Anywhere in that hatched area represents at least a 10% chance within a 25-mile radius of 2-inch diameter hail or greater. Now, the good news is that this is all going to happen after the solar eclipse. The bad news is there will be the threat of severe weather, and your car could get damaged potentially as we go into Monday evening due to that significant hail threat that's going to be ongoing across a large chunk of Texas. Again, this is going to be more of a widely scattered threat, so not everybody will see large hail, but obviously you do want to make sure that you're taking the proper precautions. The damaging wind threat, surprisingly, is not really that high for tomorrow. I'm not really concerned about that overall. Maybe some isolated damaging wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour, but with that being said, we do have a tornado risk, which really matches the statistical statistical probability of damaging winds, notice that we do currently have a 5% tornado risk, which includes areas like Dallas, back near Austin and Waco. There is an elevated tornado risk there, and then we still have a low tornado risk outside of that for southern Oklahoma, back into western Mississippi, and even a large chunk still of Texas. And there are going to be more days of severe weather, including Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we'll be talking about those in just a second. But I do want to show you the overall dynamics of this storm as we go into Monday. And as of right now, we are going to have a low pressure system develop back down in the southern plains and the Texas Panhandle in particular as we go into Monday and a Tuesday. And this environment in particular is not super sufficient for a large scale tornado event by any means, but there will definitely be a localized area back down in areas like southeast Texas, just south of DFW, where there will be a slightly more elevated tornado risk due to a little pocket here of stronger low-level winds, especially across, again, areas just south of DFW. So I do think there will be a slightly more elevated tornado risk there. And so, again, we'll be talking about that more in detail here in just a second, and also the overall day. Let's go into what's happening today, though, with the severe weather event, beginning with southern Illinois back into Arkansas. Notice right around lunchtime, not a whole lot of storm activity out there, but once we get closer to 1 to 2 o'clock, we'll be watching for some storm development right along the Mississippi River. The main concern with these storms will be large hail, isolated damaging winds, and maybe an isolated tornado. This threat will continue all the way through 6 to 7 o'clock tonight across western Kentucky and western Tennessee, and eventually as we go into the late evening and into the overnight hours, we're really done with that severe weather risk overall. Now, once we go into the southern plains for both Monday and Tuesday, it's a completely different story overall. The moisture is going to be surging as we go into Monday afternoon. It's going to be very dry in the morning, which is going to allow for a lot more higher clouds, but once we go into the afternoon, that's when some of those low-level clouds will begin to bubble up, and that's one of the concerns, by the way, for solar eclipse viewing. Once we go into the evening, dew points are well into the low to mid 60s, at least across almost all of Texas. Many areas, though, will go into the low 70s, so a very buoyant atmosphere is going to be available in areas like Texas. In addition to that, the significant tornado parameter as we go into Monday evening is a little bit concerning, because this essentially shows us basically the level of this tornado risk that we'll be looking at as we go into Monday evening. And the HRRR model is showing a more elevated tornado risk developing as we go into Monday evening across parts of really central Texas, back just south of DFW near Waco, and as well as into East Texas. So overall, I do think this will be the most concerning area when it comes to a tornado risk. Do I think there will be a 10% tornado risk? I can't rule it out quite yet, even though I still think that chance is really unknown at this point. I do think it's definitely a possibility that we could see an elevated tornado risk there in the area that I just circled. All right, here's the timing over the next 24 hours. Not really anything for today. Maybe an isolated storm back over in Louisiana, severe weather, a very low risk. Once we go into Monday, though, right around lunchtime, again, solar eclipse viewing should not be much of a problem unless you are south of DFW, where there will be some showers trying to bubble up as we get closer to that solar eclipse time frame. Storms are going to fire off right in the mid-afternoon hours across areas in southeast Texas. Damaging winds, large hail, tornadoes are all going to be possible. And once we go into the evening hours, these storms will be moving to the north, where there again will be an elevated tornado risk. And then we'll be watching for more storms to fire up back over in central Texas as we go into the evening hours, with large to very large hail likely. So 2 different rounds of storms. I'll have more details on the exact timing in our next forecast, so make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. And then in the southeast United States, as we go into Wednesday, there will be another risk for severe weather in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and as well as southern Arkansas, mainly for damaging winds, but I wouldn't even rule out a bit more of a tornado risk, especially down in southern Mississippi and eastern Louisiana. Once we go into late Wednesday night and the Thursday morning, storms will continue across the southeast, and another risk of severe weather is going to likely occur across areas like northern Florida back into South Carolina, with the main concern being damaging winds, but I'm not ruling out an isolated tornado risk. And once we go into Friday, this risk of severe weather is done, and we are going to return to really nice weather conditions overall. And for your solar eclipse viewing on Monday, overall great conditions expected for many areas, but some areas are going to be left out of luck with a lot of cloud cover. With that being said, I do want to give you a disclaimer that any areas that have full cloud cover will still get the full effects if you are in the totality path. It will still go dark, so definitely make sure that you are still going to those areas if you have plans to. Notice, though, in northern New England, really no cloud cover. That's the best place to be in the entire United States. Areas like western New York and northern Ohio may have some trouble. Back into Indiana, Illinois, and Arkansas, a bit more of a mostly sunny to partly sunny day is expected there. Not completely sunny for most areas. And then much of Texas will be dealing with at least partly cloudy skies, but many areas will definitely be very cloudy, with showers being possible right around that time, around and just south of Waco. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below, and again, subscribe if you've not already.